Greetings and welcome, everybody. Here we are on the side of the road. CTX700. I finally got some exhaust on here. Take a listen. I think it sounds nice. It looks halfway decent. I mean, sure, the springs in the pipe are there, but whatever. Good enough for me. Well, today we have a topic of discussion. It has to do with humility. Are bikers more humble? Huh. What do you think? Here are my thoughts. Well, we're on a ride here. So, here's my cheat sheet. First, let's define humility. And I think a good definition that we can, let's see if we all agree on it, first of all, might be an important thing, is to put yourself, your needs, your wants, your desires last. What do I mean by last? Well, I guess the emphasis is you, right? So the humble person will put the needs of others first in front of theirs. And maybe, sometimes I like to have a list of things that are the opposite of whatever I'm talking about. Okay, so we're talking about humility. What's the opposite of humility? Well, if we define it as putting our self last, then the clear opposite of that is if we put ourselves first. And some people might think of that as pride, prideful attitude. Sometimes the first thing that comes to mind are disorders where people, it's just kind of like more of an automatic thing than a decision, rather. So but why would motorcyclists be, why might you think that bikers are more humble? Well, I have two wheels, right? They don't stand up on their own, which means I have to pay a little bit more attention. In this day and age when people are distracted, that means it's kind of like a battle of wills. And you can't just will somebody to pay attention and care about what you're doing. It's a little tangential, but what about, okay, I'm on a bike. This is the non-DCT version of the 700. So I have a clutch, I have a brake over here, another brake, and the manual gear selector with my left foot. So at certain points, all four limbs are doing something. And that takes skill, or practice, or ability. It's actually helicopter pilots have a similar job, except I think all four things are happening more simultaneously than on a motorcycle. But that has to do with a reason why bikers might be more humble, and it has to do with a story. My second motorcycle, 2014 Honda VFR, I really love that bike. Crashed it. Why did I crash it? Well, it started with me being awake for about 24 hours. Should I have been awake for that long? That's not necessarily a bad thing. But if I think about my limitations, wow, it would have been wise to not do that, especially being the fact that you have to be very present when you're riding a bike. I mean, sure, you can daydream a little bit, but there's just too much going on. You have traffic, and the big thing is the consequences. consequences. If you're in we like to say car drivers are cagers because you're protected by a cage, versus a biker who doesn't have that cage. You have your personal protective equipment on you, and that's it. No airbags. Well, there are airbags for bikers, but whatever. So the consequence for not paying attention or being inebriated in any way on a motorcycle can be deadly. So there's almost a heightened sense of mortality and safety when you're on a motorcycle. Or I don't want to say you're thinking about it all the time, but people always talk about how motorcycles are dangerous. Even though 30,000 people every year in the United States die behind the wheel of a car of four wheels, we don't like to talk about that. If you're traveling, it's dangerous, period. But what does that have to do with our discussion on humility? Well, I was humbled when I crashed my bike. Come on. So why am I still riding then? Why hasn't that kept me from riding? Well, first of all, that was a judgment call. That was a poor judgment call. So I was humbled when it comes to decision making. Realizing that I didn't have the correct answer in that moment was not good, right? Well, I guess realizing that I don't have it is a good thing. So I might question myself better in the future. I still ride because I realize that doesn't have anything necessarily to do with my abilities and skill. The first point would be the fact that I did survive. It wasn't a fatal accident. The motorcycle was fatal to the bike, but we can be humbled. We can choose to be humbled. I could just, maybe it's better that I do continue riding and practice humility. But some of you might say, well, that's not exactly the same type of humility that we were talking about before. How is realizing you're not 100%, how is that putting others first? Well, that's where you might call it a different type of, according to the Bible, that's actually false humility. In the book of Matthew, chapter 5 and verse 5, Jesus says, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth." And meekness is a version of humility. And the best example of humility is Jesus giving his life for others. I mean, what more is there? What's a better example of humility? True humility, right? And you have to, yes, this is Christian theology, but you can't escape that perfect definition. And when people are 100% for self, and it is not only accepted now, it's just more than accepted, it seems like. You might be judged if you don't. And oh, I hear a helicopter. What I would encourage all you bikers out there to do is, when you sit on your bike, and obviously it's not just for bikers, when you sit down and you flip up your kickstand, say a prayer, ask the Lord for humility. Because that's where that true humility is going to come from. That's the only place. And that will affect your abilities. Because no one is truly self-sufficient. And the sooner we realize that, the healthier we're going to be. So that's my advice for y'all. Thanks for watching, guys. Let me know what you think. I appreciate it. Until next time.